There she is. Wow. Let's
Hi,
see.
how are you, Mark?
Good. Excellent. I was just getting ready. I go, I wonder if she got busy.
So, no, I made it. I'm so grateful and excited.
Look at you all dressed up. Man, you look awesome.
So do you. I love your shirt.
Yeah, yeah. And I got the Michael Cabotes going on. So
Excellent.
so tell me, you have been well, let's just go ahead and start. I'm sure you probably have a busy day, right?
I do have a busy day. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. How busy is it, by the way?
Pretty busy.
Okay, yeah, we're just trucking along on the Art Dealer Diaries here. So I have Jamie, and you say it's Schulze, right? Is that how you pronounce
Schulze, yes. I go by Schultz as well.
Schultz or Schulze? Oh, we'll get it right. And so you're the director of SWAIA,
Correct.
and you've took over that job when? Not that long ago, right?
No, it was April of this year,
Oh yeah,
2020.
that's being kind of thrown in the fire, I would say. A little bit.
Yes, previous to that, I was interim since September of last year.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, and you were operationals director too for a period of time before that, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, because that's when we met, I think, when you were doing
Mhm.
all that stuff, and you were running around crazy at that time as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so there's like what, 1,000 different vendors that come, artisans that come, right? Like 200 tribes that come to Swaya, right?
Yeah, a little over. Yes, that's correct.
So you have to somehow control all the herding cats, right?
It can be like that. I think it's just exciting as well. Like I said, it reminds me a bit of powwow, and it's a cultural event, and the community comes together. So we just want to have clear pathways of where artists need to be and at what time, and just really give them every opportunity to make sure that we are highlighting them and bringing forward, those buyers that want to participate in market.
Yeah, and and a lot of times you're dealing with people that may not have good phone systems or any phone systems, email, any of that. Language even sometimes can be an issue. Yeah, how do you deal with all that?
Well, SWAIA has historically always had an outreach program, especially here in the Southwest. We're trying to extend that for 2024, where we actually go into the communities and really help them with the application process. But also, we're working to create a smoother, streamlined application. So, over the last couple of years, and I've been around market close to 5 years, there has been different forms of application and whatnot. So we're hoping that we kind of bring back something that's much more smoother and easier for the artist to use, as well as to submit. So one of the vital things is always the photos, because they're juried in on their photos, and sometimes the quality can be very difficult.
Right.
But with technology, we're seeing that an iPhone can actually shoot a really good photo. So we're just trying to encourage artists to kind of remind them the best practices when submitting their application.
And how many applications do you get, if you can share that number, do you know?
Sure, absolutely. This past year, we had over 1,400 applicants.
Wow, that's a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be, and we're seeing that every genre of art, but also artists from all over the United States and Canada are very interested. So it was a resounding number of applicants, which we're extremely grateful for, although we have a finite footprint. So really looking at the growth of that, but what that means to, of course, our artists that have been here for years, but also moving forward into the future and how we can accommodate new artists as well.
And part of the things that you have to deal with too is just changing attitudes, what's art, what isn't art, what to take in. And maybe you can address some of that because I've really watched that. I've been going to market for over 30 years actually.
Mhm.
And I've seen that change and I think it's great. I love it. But
Mhm.
maybe you can address some of those kind of changes that are happening.
Yeah, I think one of the goals too is because we are one of the largest native art markets that's straight in the United States, is really educating not only our consumer, but also from the perspective of the collector, the visitor, is our standards, which we're going to be working on revamping this year and bringing those up to just be more inclusive, but also there's innovations out there in Indian country and the artists that are moving forward with that. And we want to accommodate that, but also be really aware of it, but holding to a traditional way of doing some of this work. So I think it's somewhat for the world presence that we're taking and moving forward for our artists with is the fine art market. These are master craftsmen and craftswomen, and their craft and their art is phenomenal. So it has never taken its rightful place in the world as fine art, and we're really making it, we're trying to move that forward and have that discussion, because of course you would, you know, as you see these, you've seen it, elevate and educate and evolve over so many of these years, but we're still not at the level in fine art in the world that we'd like to be.
And how do you do that? So how do you get the world to see? I mean, we do things like this, which are important, but, you know, how do we get the New York Times to recognize, you know, Native arts as being equally important, or maybe more, in my opinion?
Yeah, and you know, I think that comes from just the awareness of, and we have an opportunity right now in the world to show up as, you know, present day people without the romanticized
Right.
or some of the stereotypes that have been typically put upon us as Native Indigenous people of the United States, but really speaking to that from the place of that we've always been creators, we've always been innovators, and that we're experts in our fields as well. And so those is starting to gain more awareness. So utilizing, I think, just the messaging of our artists themselves, but also SWAIA, or Santa Fe Indian Market, really highlighting the work that's being done within these small communities and how much that means to not only the small community member, but how that supports and actually helps communities stay together and compact. So making sure that we're messaging that out, reclaiming a narrative that has historically been defined by other people.
Yes. Now you're Native as well, right? You're Northern Cheyenne and Lakota.
Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate, yes.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lame Deer, Montana, which is the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. So it's right on the border of Wyoming and South Dakota. It's beautiful country, absolutely
Just
gorgeous
gorgeous. Yeah,
country.
it really is.
Mhm.
And you grew up on the reservation?
Yes, I did.
Yes. And so what was that community like when you were growing up? Was there, yeah, just, yeah, you tell me how
Yeah,
you,
I think that you're going to find many different pockets of community, and just historically what has happened when people were put on reservations at different timelines. I just came back from Montana for our 4th of July powwow, which I was super grateful to have been there for and got to see my family members and extended family members and participate in our cultural gatherings. So growing up, I think, can be challenging. Of course, you have to look at a statehood's economic base,
right.
and that is a whole other conversation. But one of the things that's really important to me and that has inspired passion in me about SWAIA and what this market does is provides opportunities for artists to stay in their homelands, to actually create and keep traditions alive, but that you know where they can actually make monetary as well as economic commerce from doing their traditional beadwork, weather or pottery. And so that's why I really was inspired and impassioned around what Santa Fe Indian Market provides for the artist.
And so when you're growing up in Montana, why is it Montana and Wyoming, or is it Wyoming, South Dakota? Where exactly is it?
It's
Right.
in Montana.
It is Montana. Okay. So when you were a kid, did you have an idea what you wanted to do? Did you want to be an artist? I mean, you're in the arts.
Yes, actually, I would say that I'm not the best artist in the family. I have siblings that are extremely talented.
Yeah.
My sister, right, it does an amazing regalia beadwork. But I know I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But I think that, you know, artistry in itself and art is so healing, but it also allows you to define and create and evolve your individuality, even though you're using traditional techniques. It allows you an expression that maybe sometimes you haven't found in other places. So, but I also believe that business is an art. And so
It is. I
I've
agree with
always,
that.
yeah, I've always found myself being supportive of artists and also my family, and making, so I kind of do the legwork, but I can't really paint a stick pictures or a stick person. So
Right.
but I understand what it takes to actually create that because I've seen it. But for myself, also understanding too that it takes a lot out of an artist, and so these pathways that we create for the artists are really important, that they have clear communication, they know what to expect. Although we can't guarantee that they will sell out, we hope that they will, but giving
Right.
them the best platform possible.
Yeah. So I agree with all that, but I want to know a little bit more about yourself too.
Oh, please. Yes,
Yes. So
absolutely.
when you got out of high school, where did you go? Did you go to college? What was your path from there?
I actually left the reservation fairly early, I would say late teens, early 20s. The opportunities to actually create business or have a job opportunity were not there for me in Montana. So I actually ended up moving to Santa Fe and really liked the vibe. It was
Yeah.
cool to be native here. It
Right.
wasn't,
It is, right? It's a different
yeah,
thing. People don't
absolutely.
understand New Mexico and
Mm.
Santa Fe especially is just this blended culture of where yeah, native is actually very cool.
Yeah. And so that was shocking and surprising, but also enthralling. And really fell in love with its people, from non-natives to natives that had been very welcoming in inviting me in early on. And, of course, I was away from my community, but at the same time, I was able to find community through different invitations from the Pueblo women around town, but also working here. And then I moved to Taos. And my husband and I owned a business there, and 20 years of ownership created quite a community. But New Mexico is just a beautiful space, and I feel like I've grown up here. Obviously, I've spent more time here than I have on the reservation, but I've raised my children here, so I'm super, super in love with New Mexico. But I do love my homelands as well.
So what was this business? We kind of glossed over it. I mean, 20 years is a long time to have a business.
It was in the hospitality. So my husband actually is from Munich, and he created and founded the Bavarian Lodge and Restaurant.
Yep.
And I was the hospitality partner. So we were at 10,300 feet in the Taos Ski Valley. And very seasonal. So we had a summer season and a winter season, which can be difficult in business. So it's not a consistency. So you're really based on it's based upon tourism numbers. So we've seen hard years, we've seen great years. With climate change, that has also been difficult. But yeah, it was an amazing opportunity to kind of have people experience Bavarian culture from the perspective of a lunch or a dinner.
Yeah. And so you learned a massive amount about business because you're running a small business
Mm-hmm.
and how
Yes.
to deal with people too.
Yeah. And just also, I think that innovation, right? Out of the box thinking, because at 10,300 feet, you can't just run down to Smith's if you're out of something. You
Right.
have to be fairly creative, but you also have to really understand your customer. You also are looking at your employees as ambassadors and part of a family that, that is welcoming in these visitors from all over the world.
Right. And so you did that 20 years. 24,
Correct.
was it 24 years? How long? How long?
It was a little bit more than 20 years, yes. So within the last 10 years, we sold our business. And
Yeah.
I was back in school at IAIA when I was asked to be part of the SWAIA team as the volunteer coordinator for a summer. I was not looking for a new job, but they really did need some help, and so I came in as the volunteer coordinator for that summer, and just fell in love with the organization and the artists and the volunteers, and was able to, from that point, they asked me to stay on full time, and here I am.
So what were you doing at IAIA? What you,
I was studying the Indigenous liberal arts program, which I find really fascinating, as well as taking silversmithing. So it was a full, yeah, I had a,
you're an artist. What are you
yeah,
talking about?
exactly. So I was expanding and kind of exploring those arenas for sure. Haven't been back yet, but I hope to in the future.
Are you still doing any silversmithing?
I haven't had the opportunity to play with that. I'm looking forward to it, but I've learned so much from our artists as well.
Yeah. You have a favorite silversmith? I know it's kind of hard to say because you're the director of SWAIA.
I would say that the one that stands out to me in this moment, and there's such a beautiful variety because
Right.
I think when you think of silversmithing, it really is relative to the individual, but some of the techniques that have come across in Liz Wallace's work is really
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah.
And I think that for me has been an outstanding way of seeing what silver can do and actually become something so different.
Yeah, one of our last podcasts I did was with Bo Joe, and
Mm,
he's up in Wyoming now, but
yeah.
he's having a show probably as we speak,
Mhm.
coming up at Claggett Ray, and he's also just an amazing individual, and I love hearing these stories about how people's journeys, their lives end up, especially Native artists, seem to have a sense of creativity and wanting to really expand on that. Just like yourself, you say you're not an artist, right?
Mhm.
My sister's the artist. She's much better at beadwork, but then you're at one of the major schools learning silversmithing. So,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty of all of our cultural communities is we were always creators,
oh,
and
absolutely.
art and artisans. But I think it's fascinating to me too, just to be able to take elements and see what an artist do that so beautifully, and have that come together to represent something from them individually.
Yes. So with SWAIA coming up, we've got the show that's August 19th and 20th, right? And
Correct.
so tell people so we can just kind of get a sense of if people are maybe haven't been to Indian Market. And I've said this to people for decades, it has to be on your bucket list, right? It's one of
Mhm.
those things you must see in life. I don't care where you live, you have to go to Indian Market. So having said that, if people maybe you can tell them a little bit, maybe some people don't know about exactly what goes on, but you can give us a little bit of the highlights of the events that happen and how to, what we know it doesn't cost anything to attend if you want to go to the plaza, right?
Mhm, that's correct.
Yeah,
Uh, yes, so it's absolutely a free market. I think the only year that we weren't able to do that was during COVID.
yes, that's right.
But, and that was because of COVID requirements. But uh, that whole week is going to be full for folks. SWAIA gets ready for a best of show award ceremony that happens on Friday, but Wednesday and Thursday are spent in receiving and jurying and judging. And then Friday is kind of the award winners. So there's about 220 different awards that are given out through SWAIA. And Mark, thank you so much for signing up to be one of the best of show, kind of the grand prize
Yeah,
sponsors. We're so grateful because it's really important to not only the award itself. I mean, there's a monetary element to it, but being kind of judged in all of these all of these great artists and coming out as the award winner is a really big deal. So we have a preparation that goes into that. And then Saturday is actual opening of market,
right.
which
Get
there's
up early, folks.
yeah, yep, and wear good shoes. Plan on walking quite a bit because it's well worth it. And that's about 12 city blocks that are shut down. So just be aware of your parking. I always tell people kind of plan this out, especially if you're looking for a specific artist or a specific type of classification. There will be water stations around. Of course, every food opportunity, as far as restaurants are very, very busy. So plan early, make reservations. We will have food traditional indigenous food vendors that will be located on Sheridan Avenue.
Yeah, great
Three
fry
only,
bread.
yeah, we're trying to work on that to have more next year. But, you know, if you're wanting a taste of the traditional food from the Southwest as well as Indian country, you'll be able to get that there. There will be lines, so please be patient with each other. And just ask questions. We'll have lots of volunteers out there with their volunteer shirts on, and staff members. But yeah, I think you're going to have a great day. Last year, we experienced the blessing of rain. So I just tell everybody it's an outside event. So please be conscientious of that. So if you don't have an umbrella, you know, get an umbrella because it works in the sun and the rain. It's super helpful and useful. So, and I think, you know, one of my biggest things too is we are also having just the opportunity to get to meet those artists. So take the time, ask some questions. They are very, very willing to discuss their work. And actually, this is why they're here too, is to really connect with people. So then Saturday night, we have a gala, which is one of our major fundraisers for the year. We have a live auction and also a fashion show component to that. So we're excited to have showcase the genre of art that comes through.
Yeah,
And then on
I was going to say, I'm just going to interrupt because I'd like to talk about that fashion show because that has really become something of the hot ticket that you want to have. In fact, it looked like part of it already sold out, maybe for some of the VIP for that. But you know, that's really expanded, right? I mean, that's turned into something maybe a little unexpected. I don't know if it is or not, but it seems like it's a really important component of the whole week now.
It has been. It's the 10th year of the Indigenous Fashion Show. So, you know, when I look at that, we're looking at a narrative and a speaking piece in the world, right? Everybody loves clothes. Everybody loves to be a fashion statement. And Amber Dawn Bear Robe, the production coordinator of the whole fashion show, has worked continuously hard to also kind of educate around that. But when you see these innovations that come through from traditional regalia to couture, it's a beautiful show, but it also is an expression of the resiliency as well as innovation that happens within Indian country. We end the week on Sunday with a very large fashion show, and next year we are actually going to be launching in May of 2024 Santa Fe Indigenous Fashion Week. So we're excited to do that.
That's cool.
Seen it, yeah, and we've seen that there's a lot of also interest from the outside world, but also within our cultures that want to also look at what it means to kind of have that experience with pieces that you're going to have ready to wear. You're going to have couture. You're going to have statement pieces. So it's very exciting.
And that's May of this 2024?
That is correct.
And it's the whole, is it a week or a month or what is it?
We're starting off with 4 days, the first week of May, and then we will move into a fuller schedule in 2025.
And that will be run through SWAIA?
That is correct.
Wow, that's a big deal. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think people don't understand how important SWAIA is to the economy of Santa Fe. I mean, it's critically important. I can say that as a gallery owner who had a gallery there for 20 years, you don't have SWAIA, you don't have Indian market, you don't have that. You don't live, you can't make it. And you know, it's on the backs of these creative shows that are so important. May for Santa Fe is going to get a huge boost.
Well, thank you for saying that, Mark, too. And I think that that's always the opportunity as this collaboration with our partners in retail, partners in galleries, you know, and that we're really reaching out to them too, to be supportive of a very large cultural gathering and making sure that we are working together, you know, just holistically for Santa Fe as well, and making the experience of the customer, the guest, the consumer to be as great as possible.
Yes. Well, for me to be able to sponsor Best of Show for the next 5 years is like tremendously a gift for me. You know, having gone to the show for over 30 years and always wanting to see the Best of Show, and the thought that, yeah, I've, been in the business long enough that I can get to the point where I can help and try to give back to, the Native community was, it's thrilling, right? So,
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's folks like you that really, you said 30 years of going to market. We have volunteers that have been volunteering for, 30 plus years. And
plus years, yeah.
yeah, and also some folks that have been going to market for 50 years and remember sleeping on the plaza and just seeing the growth and the change that has happened and evolved. And one of the kind of cornerstones of this market truly is around that type of wanting to understand, wanting to be educated, wanting to understand these Native communities. And we're hoping to highlight that not only through the art, but also actually getting to meet the artist.
Yeah. And that's one of the things you can do at Indian Market that you can't do anywhere else. You can literally meet the top individuals in their field, like a Russell Sanchez, who won Best of Show for the 100th anniversary. Russell's going to be very kind and talk to you, whether you are buying or not. He probably won't even have any pots because he'll sold them within the first 3 minutes. So, or you can meet a young child who's just getting going, who could be the next Russell Sanchez. And, you have that whole variety. Plus, I've interviewed lots of Native artists who do SWAIA, who do Indian Market, and they all tell the same story, which is it is a family to us. We grew up at it. We were by our fathers, mothers, grandmothers' sides. We know what it is, and now we're part of that community, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, the absolute generational aspect of this is profound. And I think that that's one of the beauties of this market that people don't really realize, and especially I think first timers, but you're going to be meeting grandparents, parents, as well as grandchildren and children that have been doing this market. And, for years and years, the institution itself is 101. Our oldest artist showing is 94. You're also going to get to meet the 5-year-old that is under, their mom or dad's and selling in the booth. So it's a beautiful celebration of community.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a way that even if you don't, as an outsider just coming to visit, even if you only come once a year, if you make these relationships, if you buy art, which I encourage you to do, that you can develop the relationships with these artists and watch them grow as you grow. One of the things I always did for our family is my kids would go and we would go to Indian Market and they got to pick out one thing, right? Within a limit, because there's some expensive things, but it allowed them to grow their collection and to get things every year and get to meet the artists. And, so it's a tradition for our family as well.
Well, and I think when, to speak to that a little bit too, which is, it's really one of the things that affected me profoundly when I really was seeing the behind the scenes is that you're walking away with not only a beautiful piece of art, but you really are supporting a living culture. And that artist in itself will support, extensively back into their communities. And that choice hasn't always been there for folks. And so it's a very powerful economic impact that happens within Indian country through these types of art markets.
So it must feel very overwhelming in some respects, but gratifying and just maybe almost hard to believe when you think to yourself, I'm running this show, because you understand, the dynamics and how important it is to all these people and all these families. What's that like?
I'm filled with gratitude. I take my responsibility. It's a heavy hat,
I
but
bet.
I also understand that I'm learning and my team is learning, and that when we are learning, there are things that we're gonna, figure out how to do better, but always open to the artists. This is really about them and what they need, and trying to make those communication pathways easier to do for them, because it is a wide variety of communities. So representing over 200 different sovereign nations in the United States and Canada is a big deal. And so
like the UN, when you think of it, really.
yeah,
Right?
and those needs and wants can be somewhat different, you know, but understanding within what we can create within the physical footprint and the opportunity to actually empower the artist with more tools is what I'm looking to do. So we are launching our digital platform that I think we've been talking about for the last couple of years. So Indigenous collections will be going online. We have been able to go and get it through beta testing. So we look forward to that because we feel the digital space is also very empowering for our artists to have another option to sell year round.
Yes, and so is that going, what's the website, the URL for that? Will it be through SWAIA dot?
It will be through SWAIA.org.
Yes, and it'll be its own platform marketplace,
Correct.
basically. That's vetted through SWAIA?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. Well, I think it's very important too. You know,
It is, you know, I think one of the things that we're always facing in Indian country is those gaps in technology. And so we're wanting to make sure that we are handing those tools back to the artists, whether it's, like I said, digitally or physically. And so we are also working on a small business online learning component that will launch in the fall to early winter of this year.
and that business learning, is that to help artists understand the processes of what's involved with having a small business? Because that's what they have.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's actually going to be every variety from filling out an application to how to prepare, but also looking at starting social media channels to marketing yourself, making sure that you have your New Mexico GRT number or CRS number. State languages change for those type of taxation issues, but just always wanting to inform the artists, you know, and that we're in the kind of the mothership of Santa Fe in New Mexico, but what that means to do business here, how you can handle that. But if you're doing business online, all of those different aspects, but also if you want to go further down that road and really look at a business plan, strategies within that, we want to really help that artist not only be able to look at the moment of market, but even beyond it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's terrifically important to do that. And I like something like this, that's an online platform through a vetted organization, nonprofit organization, because people can feel, I think one of the problems for a lot of people when they buy native arts, they don't know for sure sometimes if they're getting the real deal, right? The genuine thing, even though we have laws to protect this. But if you're going through a platform like this, you can be self-assured that you're going to be buying native made art as it's, you know, deemed, and not something else, because, you know, there's frauds and fakes out there for sure.
Yeah, we've been struggling with cultural appropriation and also people knocking off different styles of art for you know,
Ever.
a long time. What SWAIA does provide is the confidence to the buyer, but also within that for the artist is that, you know, bringing them back information like what's happening currently with the Indian Arts and Crafts Board amendment, trying to hand them back the information so that they understand some of those changes and to the regulations, but always making sure that they, as much as we can possibly, is giving them the you know, the tool of knowledge.
Yes. And so if people want to join SWAIA, which I encourage they do, and if they do join, then they can go on the Friday night, depending on what level they are, but they can go and watch, you know, everybody gets, the doors go open, everybody gets to see the who won what, you get to view the art, you know, and the artist. How can people do that? How can they go about it? And what are the costs?
Sure, absolutely. So SWAIA's membership, which is I'm thinking you're talking about, because I'd
Yes,
like
that's
to
correct.
also say if you want to join SWAIA as an artist, our application will open at the beginning of the new year. But as a member, which we greatly appreciate, those donations make this possible too. You would really look at online at SWAIA.org, and our starting level is $25 to be able to be a member of SWAIA, but we'll go up to 5,000. So it's every in between, so you just look at the levels that you would like to, what you want to participate in. The sneak peek is membership only, and that happens right after best of show luncheon and ceremony. So that's from 2 to 4. That allows members to really be able to participate and see that for themselves. And then we have general preview on Friday, which is from 4 to 6. Our artists will actually be able to go to that for free, because we also want to give them the opportunity to be able to peruse and see the artwork in Indian
Right.
country. So yeah, Friday is a day of celebration.
Yeah, I love I love Friday when all
Mhm.
the artists are going through and you can see their faces like, oh, look, you see
Mhm.
one they did. Oh, you just, it's a joyous event to see.
Mhm.
And I encourage people to join SWAIA. I think it's a very important, and to attend these events, even if you can't go,
Mhm.
Santa Fe at Indian Market, you still can join SWAIA and still help out. And
Mhm.
you're running a huge organization with 200, plus tribes, over 1,000 individuals, that can't be done without funds, quite frankly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been the only one. There's been every variety, and I think that, I really stress the word stewardship. You
Yeah.
know, this is truly not about an individual or a singularity, at all, but it is stewarding an amazing opportunity that should be taken care of and nurtured, and also allowed to grow and evolve too. So I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah. And so if people want to see, and you have an Instagram account, I've been to it, maybe you can
Mhm.
shout that out too so they can watch it.
Santa Fe Indian Market.
There
At
you
Santa
go.
Fe Indian Market. Facebook is Santa Fe Indian Market. So you
Yeah.
can look up all of our social media channels that way. We do have a TikTok channel as well, and it's Santa Fe Indian Market. So that is, we're using every opportunity to try to reach our artists, but also kind of get the information out there, and, information about our artists as well.
And are you doing more about that with the social media? Are you spending more time and energy in that area at this point in time?
We're gearing up to even have more, of course, during the actual event is kind of the meat of the bones, but we're really using that to highlight artists that will be showing this year.
Nice.
Everybody looks forward to our booth guide coming out, which our partner Hutton Broadcasting is actually helping us with. That will be available in the first part of August. But we're excited to be able to just start kind of giving people glimpses of those artists and their amazing work.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited as always to go to Indian Market, but this year particularly since we'll have another role in it, which is just a gift for us. Quite frankly, I can hardly wait to meet the person who, or persons, I guess it could be even a team. I guess
Mhm.
Indian
Be a
Market.
collaborator team,
Yeah,
absolutely.
best of show. Yeah, who knows who wins, and that's part of it. But really, I think the whole part to me of SWAI is it's it's a way to meet and see individuals that are creative souls,
Mhm.
and just the variety is just, it's mind-boggling. I mean, I'm always, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm always shocked that I'll see someone and go, oh my God, what, that's unbelievable. That's crazy. That's so,
Mhm.
uniquely different, whatever that may be. And it's a way to get to see that and be a part of it,
Mhm.
because New York and, Basel, and they have all these types of shows, but they're very hard to be able to get into or do. And, you're just kind of, a passerby. And in Indian Market, you are part of the scene. You are
Mhm.
part of that. At least that's how I
Absolutely.
feel. Anything you would like to say or do at kind of the end of this, podcast that you'd like to make sure people
Well,
know?
I just like to thank you for having me. I think that once again, we're learning. So if there's comments, suggestions, please feel free to reach out. I am not striving for perfection, but I am really working towards doing our best. And I think that, we've always, with this amount of people, just be patient with each other and
Right.
enjoy folks. And so thank you very much, Mark.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you in August, and we'll be there for all the big events.
Okay, take
All right.
care.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.